welcome back. It's a long hiatus from our room one-on-ones, and Celtic are back from Edinburgh, and it seems like we're back in 1888 because we brought Hibs with us as we've entertained the Hibbies at Celtic Park this Saturday afternoon. So as always, I am absolutely delighted to welcome back my good pal Mark Strachan, fresh from another wee holidays having. Well, Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Scott. Nice to see you. Yeah, all good. Life is good and keeping busy.
Good, mate. Good. So, like I said, we haven't spoken for a preview this season, I don't think.
No,
I don't know what really happened there. But we done a wee catch up when we started. We were doing the specials about the so we've kind of caught up. However, we'll still look back because I think it is pertinent to talk about what's happened with Hibs this season, especially with the manager side and how you progressed or regressed, whatever way you want to tell me about. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll summarise the first half of the season and then chat about everything really after the World Cup. Right, so Lee Johnston, who comes in from a ill-fated spell at Sunderland, he replaced caretaker David Gray, who was caretaker for the second time that season. He replaced him as manager as the club looked to head in a different direction. Johnston, of course, had a short spell as a player at Kilmarnock and an even shorter spell at Hearts. We'll talk about that later. League-wise, before the World Cup, the club played 16 matches, 6 wins, 2 draws, 8 defeats. Including those games, you some pretty good highs. You had a couple of big home wins over Livingston and St Mirren. There was a home draw in the derby earlier in the season, and you had that 2-2 draw with Rangers with the equaliser. However, some big away defeats to Celtic, Aberdeen, followed by some really narrow home defeats, which I dare say would stick in the throat a wee bit. Livingston, St Mirren, Dundee United, Kilmarnock. So the league table then, when the World Cup turned up in November, Hibs were sitting in, where we got 8th place. 20 points for 16 games, a goal difference of -5, 5 points off a 7, and 5 points off a 3rd place and 5 points away from the playoff place. So whilst you were in 8th, you won the desperation stuff technically. But right, so the League Cup came and went. In a group with Clyde, Falkirk, Bonnyrigg, Rose and Morton, Hibs finished with 2 wins, 2 defeats and crashed out of the groups in the stages before August. Right, so the World Cup came and went. At that point, how is Mark Strachan and the rest of the ensemble thinking about things down at Leith Way?
Well, a good summary, Scott, of what was a horror start to our season. I think the thing you probably missed that's really important is we were decimated by injuries. The only game with Hibs tend not to bleat about it. Another club shares a city with us, tells the world about how many injuries they've got and how important that is and why they don't succeed. So we were decimated by injuries and probably was a bit of the background to that. I don't think Lee Johnston took the League Cup seriously, and the Hibs fans are annoyed about that because we only get 3 trophies we can win every season, and we actually, have actually secured the League Cup a few times in recent years. So that got Hibs fans off on the wrong foot with Lee Johnston. Personally, he's a slaver, I think. Right, he talks too much, but with good intention. Right, he actually probably is quite an intelligent football manager. But he thinks we're stupid and doesn't realise that, some of us are quite clever and understand that, have good jobs outside of this world. So I think he slightly patronises. It doesn't mean it. It's not intentional. He did come with a promise of attacking football. The fact we've been scalped against Celtic and Rangers and even against Hearts and teams like Aberdeen, we've maybe not got the results we'd hoped for. But that's because he does play. You can see by his signings, he signs attacking players, and when a list who's no playing for us, plus who's just come back, you'll see what I mean about. So I kind of get that, but I would suggest to you, your average modern Hibs fan doesn't like that because we all know society now. You guys are lucky at the moment because you're getting that instant success, but when you didn't get it, the fickle football fans are awful, and Hibs are just as bad as any other club, or in my opinion, a wee bit worse. Given I know a lot of fans of a lot of other clubs are unforgiving of managers and want to sack everybody, and that's probably Hibs started their own trend there. They've caused the fans to think that because we keep firing folk. So first half of the season, when it got to the World Cup break, I would have said at that point 49.9% of the Hibs fans wanted Lee Johnston sacked.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
They weren't happy with his selections. They weren't happy with the results. Some of us, maybe that read the game a wee bit better, could see what he was trying to do. It wasn't always working, I'm not going to lie, but you could see what he was doing. And I'm going to pick your absolute hammering of us at Celtic Park as an example of that. How naive is it that a manager takes his team to Celtic Park and tries to play you what you play at? Celtic are the only club in this country that play like that, let's be blunt. And we tried to match you, and at the beginning of the game, gave you a wee fright. And the roof fell in because we didn't defend. We wanted to win 6-5. Unfortunately, with no strikers in our squad at that point, it was never going to happen. And as soon as you scored, it was games of bogey. I don't ever leave the football early. I don't like doing that. I'm a Hibs fan. I like to stay to the end, the bitter end, quite often. I was in the house at 5:30 that day. I thought it was going to be 10. I never thought it would be 6-0. I left at 4-0, much to my son was quite happy to do that, but one of my nephews stands with all the dafties, our equivalent of and he didn't want to go because he was having a good time doing all the daft stuff. But I was in the house by 5:30. That's quicker than I get home from Easter Road. So it tells you a lot, because when the diehards were leaving en masse, and I consider myself one of the what we call the 900, you know, the guys that have the away season tickets. When we were all getting up and saying, "Oh no, I can't face this," it probably told you where we were. So first half of the season, I think his biggest mistake was probably didn't take Scottish football as seriously as he should have. Yeah, he didn't set up against the teams differently depending who we were playing, which I think is an arrogant thing to do if you've not got a good team. Or not got as good.
If you've not got a settled team, I definitely agree with you.
So you know, I think your manager and even the manager at Rangers can kind of get away with, you know, setting out your stall to the best of your abilities. But I think the other clubs in Scotland probably can't. The proof of that probably recently is the scalpings you've given Hearts, who do think they're better than everybody else and aren't. You know, they're just there on that. We call it the 3 million. You know, the 3 million that they get that nobody else does. The benefactors and their place in Europe. And look at them; they got scudded just as much. Rangers scudded them. You scudded them. So Lee Johnston didn't take it serious enough for me. He had a wee run at the beginning that looked promising, and we had a reasonable team. And nothing up front. Because all our strikers were injured. We got Boyle back. That gave us a wee surge. And Martin Boyle, to picture it, he's like Henrik Larsson to Celtic fans. Martin Boyle was just loved by the Hibs support. His wife plays for Hibs. His family are all Hibs people, and he wasn't brought up a Hibs fan. But cut him in half, he's one of us now. So that really buoyed our support, and him scoring the equaliser against Hearts on his debut just, you know, summed it up. But then he got injured. I think it was against Celtic, actually got injured at Easter Road. It was against you. Well, I think it was our own player that injured them. And the loss of Martin Boyle, the stop-start career of Aidan McGeady, the missing Kevin Nisbet Kukarevich, we signed, who's one of the City group, you know, this group of players that passed around City group. He's a big Ukrainian laddie. He's a player, but he's out all the time injured as well. He's just come back, so he was missing. So we were quite reliant on a reasonably good striker that scores the odd goal, but for every goal he scores, he misses two. So I think that's, you know, it's one of the ones, and it all went wrong. And it did feel, and the other thing, Scott, you didn't mention, but I think it's really important, it did feel like we were a bit rudderless and there was a lot of talking and nothing happening. But then, of course, it turns out our chairman, who was quite well respected at Hibs, the Hibs fans took to him because he took to us. He was actually seriously ill and nobody knew. So nobody knew until Christmas, until he announced actually he had anything wrong with him, never mind the fact he passed away a few weeks later. I think it was a whole, I'm not making any excuses. I mean, you're still a football club. Players need to turn up every week. But there was a lot going on that subsequently has proven to be so, because, you know, and we'll talk about that after the World Cup, But as things changed with the club, we've got back to having a bit of, I don't dare I say it, we're a bit gallus again, and we're up for it, and Hibs are playing good football again, and the fans have come back. We've had some really big crowds, which tells you everything. You saw our game against Rangers the other night. That was a massive attendance for Hibs on a Wednesday night, because we always laugh the kids don't go when we play Rangers, and frankly somewhat Celtic as well. Mm-hmm. And yet we had nearly 20,000 at the game, and they didn't get any more tickets than they ever get. And that's a big sign that, when the Hibs fans are happy, they come back along. We are a big club, but our fans disappear overnight when we're not doing as well. So first half of the season, we were very nervous. Even you were saying about us being 8th and still in touch with a position of maybe getting into Europe or the playoffs and all that kind of thing. Hibs fans felt we were going down. That's what a lot of people. I didn't believe that personally, and as you know, the reason I'm on here, I write quite a well-known article about Hibs every week that's quite well read and hopefully respected. And even I was feeling myself getting dragged into the moaning, and I try and give a balanced view. And frankly, I'm a bit biased. I talk Hibs up when they didn't deserve it sometimes.
Mm-hmm. But that's your job, mate. That's your job as fans.
What we do as fans, exactly. It's not as fans, not as any kind of media, but just because that's what we do, because we're back the team that we love and all of that stuff. Even I was struggling a couple of times trying to folks say, how can you even write that article after the game? And I write it because I try to see the good and all the bad. Now it's easy. It's back easy again, apart from twice. Yeah, so easy against Hearts because you can use all your stuff you didn't like about them, etc. Frankly, it's quite easy again. Even though Rangers pumped us, I found it easy because my whole thing's a diatribe about them and their fans. It's hard against playing you in my pre-match article for Saturday, and the post-match one I'm going to have to write a dread, because it's hard to pull out positives out of thumpings, You just hope that somebody has a good game or will score a good goal or something like that. But I still think we've turned a corner. If I was to summarise the first half of the season, I'm glad it's over. But I'm really happy that Lee Johnston, Hibs fans, have now seen there's
something there.
He's got something there. He's got something. He's a media whore. He loves it. He loves talking like he's a clever guy. He dresses like he's been in River Island the night before. We all give him an absolute, because he comes out in his slacks and cream coat and all that. But it's quite funny. We call him Wee Lee. That's his name, Wee Lee, and it's become a term of endearment. I don't think it was at the beginning. Yeah, and playing for Hearts for half an hour, it never ever works. Playing for Hibs, I'm sorry, because the first thing you do when he does something wrong is you call him a Hearts bastard. That's what comes out. It doesn't come out in me, but
it's how it works. Yep. I've been that soldier.
Yeah, you do. It just comes out. It's like, oh, I didn't mean that. That wasn't what I meant at all. It's not your fault that you played for them, but different. I don't know.
It's interesting, right? Because we're going to come on to it, and I think there is that stubbornness in our football supporting lives. I think sometimes that even when there is mitigating factors, we don't want to use them. And the Hibs injury, and throw in the fact that Big Porto, as you would call him, had kind of already made his case clear. I'm Joe the Toff. I'm not signing a new deal. If you want to get some money for me, you better start punting me the new. You fling that in, you fling the McGeady thing, and the McGeady one's interesting. I think it's worth a discussion, because however good McGeady is, and since he made his fleeting comeback and then get injured again, I think he looked really good in spells. But are you looking at McGeady in the same way as maybe Fletcher at Dundee United and going, is his heart really in this? Is he back up the road to play a game of football, or is he here to bust his ass for your club? Now, that's an answer you can maybe give me.
Yeah.
But when I watched that Rangers game, the first game back, I mean, Nisbet destroyed their centre-halves. Now, I'm going to touch on it again when we talk about the squad, But see what you're saying about the striker thing. The striker thing's massive because there's a whole bunch of guys some who have departed the club who have all had lots of minutes. So in the midfield seems to be the same midfield every week, most weeks. But the attack, he seems to be kind of flinging things at the wall and hoping things will work. And maybe he'll score a goal this week, so he gets a start next week. And as you say, misses 4 sitters, you get beat 1-0, and you're sitting going, well, is this guy any good or is he fucking rotten? And that's just for me looking at the stats, Martin. I don't know if I've touched on anything there.
Aye, where did I begin? So I deliberately held off McGeady because McGeady didn't really play the first half of the season.
That's right, yeah.
Injured and vanished, and we thought, what have we bought? And I hope it's on a as you play thing, because most of you may know Aidan McGeady's an independently wealthy man. He owns a lot of property, particularly in Scotland, and so very convenient to move up here. And he was spotted a number of times watching your team and your B team. Which doesn't go doing well at Hibs. When you play for us, you play for us.
No, I get that.
Yeah, and Scott Brown came for us and still had a strong attachment to Hibs, but he didn't come watch us very often, but he did. Lee Griffiths is probably a bit different. I suppose in thinking about that, Aidan McGeady, Lee Griffiths, same kind of thing. We know he's a Celtic supporter, and I get that. To touch on McGeady, not Porteous, I left Porteous because he left us. We knew it was coming. And in defence of the lad, he never stopped trying. He did play as a Hibs fan. That was part of his problem, somewhat. Although his problem actually was the MSN in Scotland, if I'm really honest, because he didn't like Rangers. He didn't hide the fact he didn't like Rangers, and he said it. And for me, he was targeted because of it. And the Rangers, or probably, I think I said to you the last time, or it might have been when I was with Jason and co having a pint. And one thing that disappointed me was the time, and folk were in denial about it, was when he got booed by Celtic fans, because that was just Rangers patter for me, and Dundee United and Hearts done it, and leave the laddie alone. The only thing he ever done wrong was that he rattled a few Rangers players absolute beauties, which we cheer about. You cheer about, I cheer about.
I remember you talking to us about it, and like you say, I don't think I boo anybody. I mean, I think the only guy I ever really, really despised on the pitch was Nacho Novo. Do you know what I mean? Booing really. Comedy booing, boo, get the thumbs down.
I'm different. I boo lots of Rangers players, and I boo Hearts players, and I boo certain players with links to either club that are playing for somebody else. I'm not going to deny it. When I'm at the football, I take my sensible head off and put my stupid football on. But notwithstanding that, there are some players that you would have in your own team, wouldn't you? And Ryan Porteous, I suspect Ryan Porteous could get into any team in Scotland, including Celtic. Might not always hold his place, but he's a player. He's a good football player. Parking Ryan Porteous back to Gates, the biggest disappointment for Hibs fans was him getting injured a second time. But for very different reasons for the first time, because the first time we thought we'd been sold a dummy, and it's like, here's a guy, as you said, seeing out his time, Hartnell in it. He came back and played those 5 or 6 games, and he was magnificent. He was the difference. He was brilliant. He looked like a football player that played at the top level. And I'm talking about after he left Celtic, in his days, although when he played for Everton, as a Evertonian for my sins as well, he didn't really set the heather on fire there. But notwithstanding that, the 5 or 6 games he had are the reason Hibs are now sitting comfortably 4th. Because Aidan McGeady turned up and he looked good, and we all admit we now miss him. Touch on the attack, decimated the whole season. We'll get to Hibs attack, but Hibs midfield, you said it seems like the same players every week. It's actually very different players we've got and have done for the last few weeks, since Christmas really, because
that's what I was talking about really, Mark. To be honest, I was talking about kind of before Christmas. It seemed to be, I mean, we'll come to the kind of incomings.
Aye, it was injuries. Injuries decimated us. So every week, Joe Newell started, whether he was having a good game or a bad, and Joe Newell doesn't have an average game. He's either shite or brilliant.
Aye, you told me that.
And young Campbell, Josh Campbell's a superb football player who's now stuck by him when everybody else had went against him. He's a Hibs man. He's one of us. And he was getting better. You can see it if you watch football. You pick your players and you say, I can see it. So that lad, he really has stepped on. So he earns his place. He's a first pick. And then it was whoever else was ready. So we had that young lad Kenny that we put out on loan, who just wasn't there. He's not ready. Looks like he's doing okay at Ross County, but so we had nothing because we've had a player that we signed, McGuinness from St Mirren, who's been on the bench longer than he's been on the pitch for us. And every time he comes back, he ladders his tights or gets a blister or a pluke, and he's out again. And yet, when he plays, a week or two that he plays, you can see once again his absolute quality and he's the next level up, which is what Hibs want to do, sign Scottish players that can step on maybe on an English Championship or whatever. And then we've got JDH, the other St Mirren player, the Irish lad, that isn't he a bad player? He's probably a bench player at Hibs. But he's been out injured all year, so we had no midfield. So we've signed a couple, and then signing particularly a laddie called Jimmy Jago, who folk haven't heard of, but he's an Australian international. He looks like an established football player who's come in. And
right. I'm going to hold you on that. Do you know what? Right. I'll rattle through these, and then we can sit and you can give me your thoughts. Right. So. As I said, league football return, first game back, 3-2 defeat away to Rangers. A game with the returning Kevin Nisbet seemed to give little reward for decent effort. Leading twice to come back with 0. Before the window opened, a good 4-0 win over Livy and then a 4-0 defeat by Celtic. But then with another derby on the horizon. You had that 3-0 defeat at Tynecastle. I presume that was pretty hard to take, but it did start that unbeaten league run, 5 wins and 2 draws, and seen quite a resurgence in belief. But unfortunately, that came to a grinding halt with that humbling 4-1 defeat to Rangers Easter Road. Right. So before this weekend's match, the team are currently sitting in 4th place. Again, 5 points behind 3rd place Hearts. 12 wins, 12 defeats, 4 draws, goal difference of +1 and 2 points ahead Aberdeen. Scottish Cup. We'll quickly move on for that. Not much to hear. Talk about 22nd of January, a 3-0 home defeat by Hearts again. We can have a chat.
Changed. That's when Hibs changed.
Right. Okay. Right. So let's look at the window. Right. So young winger Stephen Bradley departed the club, joined Livingston. Manchester-born left-sided player Dimitri Mitchell departed in a free transfer, joined Exeter. For those listening to the podcast, Mark had just punched the air. Momodo Bayang, after 5 matches, left the club with his loan cut short. Ryan Schofield, the keeper on loan for Huddersfield, also had his loan cut short after making no appearances. Striker Elias Melkerson, who joined the club from Bodo Glimt last January, moved to the Eredivisie and a loan spell with Sparta Rotterdam, while young, aforementioned Liberian midfielder Noah Kenny signed for Ross County on loan. 24-year-old Polish keeper Kevin Dabrowski joined Queen of the South on loan, and 19-year-old E.G. Johnson left the club for a loan spell at Austin FC's second team. Right, so the big one we were talking about was Ryan Porter's eventually left the club. He'd rejected the new contract and he signed for English Championship side Watford for a reported 450 grand. And as they sit now in 10th place, he's a regular for the team. He's actually scored a goal and he's getting rave reviews for everything I'm hearing about him. Despite Watford's own struggles, which they had before he joined, it's great to hear he's doing well.
Yeah.
Great to hear.
I told you so for all of you listening. Because he could have went to the English Premiership, that laddie. He's just a player and he steps up to the level he needs to. If folk will remember him playing for Scotland and how good he was.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes, because Watford is a bit of a basket case club. But I dare say if he continues how he's doing, and you throw in the added incentive of the recent spell of young Scottish guys going to Italy, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in Udinese soon.
Udinese's team, so that's exactly. We actually thought he signed for Udinese and get loaned to Watford. We didn't expect it to be the other way around, given the state of repair there. But I think they needed another centre half. In fact, they signed one the same day as they signed Porto, which was mental. So Porto scored his debut.
Right.
And there's an absolute love-in with him. They'll love him. Obviously, we follow it much closer than your average Scottish fan. A lot of Hibs fans who keep an eye on Watford's results now. But actually, I'm only really reading Porto's stats. How did he get on? How well did he play? What do the fans think of him? And I do it because I do it with any favourite child that plays for our club, John McGinn, even though he plays in that bogging colour now. He's still, when he played Everton the other week, and I can't remember I think he scored or he set the goal up. I couldn't help it let out a tiny wee go on, John, even though it was against another football club that I love, because and you've got favourite. You talk about your own Celtic people that go down south and succeed, and you're kind of proud of say Kieran Tierney and what he's done, and even Andy Robertson being a Celtic fan, half of you still think he's great because he supports your club. I have more opinions on him going for Liverpool. Touching on the movement around Hibs and what went out there, right? It was goodbye to bad rubbish mostly. The big rumour and story that has been going around, there was quite a lot of discontent at the club at training, and Lee Johnston wasn't part of that reason, which people just presume would be so. It was more that people not getting a game, people, just moaning at training, being unhappy, was dragging it down, and Johnson just picked, and I could actually see the ones he picked out. You could see, I could see it was him. Yeah, that wouldn't have surprised me. That one wouldn't have surprised me. Melkerson being the biggest one, him and his wee pal Rune Hogge. I can't pronounce his name properly, but I think the two of them, because they thought they'd come to Hibs and get a start because of the money paid and all of that. And they didn't look like it either. So I think every single one of them listed, apart from Kevin Dabrowski, the goalkeeper, who, whilst he's Polish and his name isn't Kevin, it's just the adopted name he's got. But he became a Hibs man. He's played with us for a long, long time, and we were a bit sad. But our problem is the young laddie Murray, names escapes me, the goalkeeper from our good under-19 team, is a proper good goalie, and I think Hibs, with the budgets we've got, they had to say he's on the last few months of his contract. So Kevin's went to Queen and South to work for our old player Marvin Bartley, who's another Hibs legend. Even though he's gone, we have the greatest respect for Marvin and his new partner. Folk can work that one out for himself, but no. So the clean out was good, and they didn't get any pushback from Hibs. The laddie they sent back to Africa was an absolute duffer. He was a mile off. If he was getting a game for Hibs, I tell you, there's a chance for me yet. He was that bad. It's a shame. It's a shame because there was some bad stories come out. Hibs put him in a wee flat in a village near the training centre and all that, and I'm sure that wasn't that great. But clubs look after their players. The laddie just was out, Hibs made massive mistakes, and that's probably what it cuts to, Scott, is our signing policy didn't work.
It really is something I want to kind of talk about once we get through the season here, Mark, about your recent signings and stuff. So we'll talk about the incomings, right? So the aforementioned James Jago, 31-year-old Austrian-born central midfielder, joined the club in January. Jago moved and grew up in Australia and has represented the national side 13 times. He played for Austria Vienna, he played for Sturm Graz in his prime, as well as playing in the Greek Super League and the Belgian Pro League for Aris and Eupen, respectively. Former Hamilton and Aberdeen centre-back Michael Devlin returned off after a spell with Fleetwood Town, and I've actually listened to a couple of podcasts. He's had these problems with injuries, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. So he signed a short-term deal with the club in February also. So you've got CJ Egan Riley, an English under-19 cap and former Man City academy and first-team player, was picked up on loan from Burnley. The 22-year-old defender is signed until the end of the season, and he's already played 4 games so far. And finally, one that I thought was really interesting when you signed him, Matt Hopp. Now, he's a 22-year-old USA international and was again signed on loan from Middlesbrough until the end of the season. Having played in the Bundesliga for Schalke when they were relegated in 2021, his 6 goals in 24 matches got him a move to La Liga and Real Mallorca, and a season beset by injury and COVID. So after that, he signed a 4-year deal with Borough only last summer. So on the face of it, that's quite a coup, because I remember when he came into that Schalke team and he was a great white hope that season as they were going down. So, I mean, so there's all your new guys, right? You've told us about the outgoings, incomings, right? Hit me with it.
So I think the weeding was good. They done good weeding and getting rid of what we didn't need. And the selection of players that come in, although we hadn't really heard of them, and well done you for knowing what Hopper was about. I didn't. So going through them particularly. So first of all, I think it's important to talk about Jimmy Jeggle because he's made our midfield again, which is fantastic. He's an instant hit with the Hibs fans. The song they sing about him is to rocking all over the world. It's quite catchy. After he's get loudy, and I think he quite enjoys it because obviously a lot of folk don't know Scottish football, and most of our clubs have a song for every player, and you know, and they're no used to that, and you can see the big cheesy grins when they get them, and he's not the only one that gets that. So Jimmy Jeggle, great player. I'm really pleased we signed him. Nothing startling, but those of you going along on Saturday will see a good player. He'll probably be overwhelmed. Yeah, because our midfield weaknesses still are there, but it will not be because of Jimmy's efforts. And whenever I'm stuck for a man of the match, he's one of the two I can always give it to because he gives 100%, even against Rangers where Hibs were poor. Jimmy Jeggle wasn't poor. He left his foot in a couple of times. He elbowed one of them. He done all the things that we want. We'd be missing that, you know, a man that plays that way. So Jimmy Jeggle, good signing, very, very astute signing, and I suspect that was directly from our boss who's been watching him and thinking I could get him in. I suspect Martin Boyle might have had something to say about that as well, given Martin's prestige with Australia, and even Jason Cummins might have spoke up for Hibs and all of that. Nah, because you know Jason still would come back to Hibs in a heartbeat, I'm sure. So next one, CJER. Yeah, so Egan Riley, if ever there was a Celtic name that plays for a different team, is that big long Irish name for a young black kid from Manchester. What a football player. How the hell we got him, I've no idea. He was signed as a right back and he's playing defensive midfield and he's playing it like he's played for Hibs for 5 years. So he's
actually playing in defensive midfield. That's interesting.
He has been. He played in both. When his first couple of games, he played as a right-sided centre half and a 3. He played as a right back, and now we've pushed him a little bit in the beside Jeggle because we're getting overrun by teams because Hibs are easy red. You know, their midfield's easy red. They see how we play. We play a weird diamond that's, and against the shiter teams it works, and against the big teams we get thumped. So watch him on Saturday and you'll see what I mean. He hopefully has a good game. He's been having good games every week. He's the second of two that is an easy man of the match when you're struggling to pick someone. So he's very good. And you can see he's
I'm looking, so obviously companies had a big influence in bringing him to Burnley from Man City. And he's represented England under 15s, under 16s, under 17, under 18, under 19s. I mean, that's a decent pedigree, isn't it?
And there's another one that we haven't talked about. He's also good friends with Will Fish, the Man United player that we've got as well.
Right.
Who I'll touch on him in a wee second because he's an important cog in all the wheel of this. But on our other signings, I'll touch on Hopper first, because the big obvious thing for me is when he come on against St Mirren was he was not fit or match fit. Every week he's played, he's got a little bit better. And you can see progress on the training grounds, obviously working for him on the pitch. He's keeping Kevin Nisbet and Mikola Kukarevic out of the team, who are our natural best two strikers, in my opinion. At the moment, they're not pushing him out of the way. So that's good. That's good for Hibs because we had no strikers only a few months ago. We had nothing. So that's good. Remind me of the fourth of four that we signed. Who was the other one I'm not thinking of? So we've got CGER, we brought Jimmy Jeggle in, we brought Hopper up front, and you mentioned a fourth one.
Ewan?
No, Ewan's been with us.
He came in the summer, didn't he?
Yeah, he came in the summer. Who's the other one that you mentioned there, Scott? Sorry, I can't even think of the fourth one we signed.
No problem. 2 seconds, right. So what did I say? We had Matt Hopper, Michael Devlin.
So the reason I forgot Michael Devlin is no play for us yet.
Yeah.
Best he's done is he's made the bench on one or two of the games, but not actually come on. So I think fair play to Hibs for giving the guy a chance. We're a bit light at the back with Rocky Bushiri being out injured, who's another good player who's out for the season. So quite a wise move. He knows Scottish football. He failed with Scott Brown at Fleetwood, but I think it was Scott Brown was still in charge. Was in charge when he was there. So I'm happy that that's the cover we've brought in. It's reinvigorated the two defenders that are playing at centre half at the moment. So that's got to be a good thing. So yeah, all four good, sensible signings, much like you'd expect a manager with the wealthy experience that we've got to sign. Because in the summer we seem to sign a big pile of diddies and a couple of good guys, and you do wonder who the good guys were picked and who all the diddies were picked by. There's a big discussion ongoing at Easter Road about the influences of a late departed owner's son and his part in gambling and signing players that are really just to punt on, and that's not really how it works in Scotland. It should be about making your first team secure and strong and aiming to win the league. I know, but that's what you should be setting your team up to do, not to bring players in to make money. That's the bonus of it, isn't it? That's how Celtic work it, isn't it? You sell your players because they're that good. Somebody comes in with more money, a bigger club, a bigger financial club, and takes your players off you. That's how it should be. So, an interesting one.
No, it's interesting because I remember, I don't know if my timeline would be wrong here, but when Ron Gordon first came in, and I was thoroughly enthused by his initial talking and what he wanted to do with the club and what he wanted to do with Scottish football, right? And we've spoken about it numerous times, Matt. I would be a big advocate of Scottish football getting better in general. I don't think Celtic should get worse to make everything better. I think everybody should get better. And obviously, easier said than done. I totally appreciate that. So I was kind of enthused. And it's not dissimilar to kind of how the Aberdeen boy got on, where he's tried something in terms of, like, we'll go and get Sean Maloney. Sean Maloney's doing this, and we'll give him these signings. And it was maybe a wee bit too much too early, and you end up with these guys who just don't suit you. You bought them because an agent tells you, oh, I've got this guy for Bodo Glimt. Do you know what I mean? And I'm thinking,
we got two for them, yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, remember the Americans you bought, the big striker and stuff like that.
You actually mentioned one of the Americans and probably didn't realise it, but he never actually played for Hibs. So one of the laddies who went signed for Austin, who are actually a reasonably good team in the American leagues, but he's another one. I never seen him in a Hibs jersey. And I mean, I watched reserve games and laddies games.
Lee Johnston.
I never seen him. Just a punt. So yeah, I mean, the club have failed there. I think they rectified that in this window. I think they've said, Lee Johnston, over to you. We trust you. Sorry about that. We tried it. It didn't work. I hope so. I really genuinely hope so. One quick point to add to the maelstrom that's been Hibs this year. God knows how we're forth given the shit that's went on. The other part that's happened to the club amongst our owner dying, the messing up of how many managers, the signing of duffers that never succeeded. But actually, the whole thing is driven by Hibs' desire to get Scottish football better, right? That's good, right? That's good. You've just said it yourself, Scott. They want it to be better, but unfortunately, I think it's came at the cost of Hibs. You know, we you know what I mean? We're so busy talking up the national game, and Ron Gordon and these people have been brilliant at it, and Cormac at Dundee United, even the guy, Cormac Aberdeen, and even the guy at Dundee United, for all their sins and their disasters, you can see what they're trying to do. You know, that they are trying to build the game up. But yeah, there's been a lot went on, and I can think of a few other things that have contributed to what a weird season to be a Hibs supporter. I bought my season ticket for next year already, because it's actually it's a roller coaster. It's quite good, you know. You can see what they're trying to do. There's another part to it as well. Just to add, we also announced at Christmas we'd be bringing in a director of football, and as it's halfway through March and that's never been announced, we're not sure if that individual had been picked and his mind was changed. There's a lot of gossip about Johnny Collins coming back, who you know is as much a Hibs man as a Celtic man, and I've got a lot of time for John, although whether he's a football, director of football is probably up for question, but he did do a good job as a number 2 at Celtic, where he was in the background, you know, and I think that's where he best suit. But that's never happened, and there's been some weird rumours as recently as this week about that, you know, about who it might be. The Dundee United guy's been rumoured a couple of times, you know, the one that strangely disappeared at the end of February and ended up in threatened fist fights with fans and all of that. so you know, but you know, It's a weird, indeed, it's a season of, you just couldn't make this up. You know, it's not by any matter of means a standard season for Hibs. So we're almost defiant of that. And just touching, and we won't talk about the game yet, Scott, but just to say, you know, Hibs have sold out on Saturday to come to Celtic Park.
Brilliant.
That tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? The fans still believe there's something. I mean, we're not that naive, but you go with, you know, that crap song you all sing with Hope in Your Heart. That's what we do. You go to the football. Obviously, I know I don't
You're
like
biased, though, Mark. You're biased. We've had this discussion.
I've got a double reason to dislike that tune, but notwithstanding that, we're sold out, and that tells you, because Scott, you go, you know, you watch the away supports, Aberdeen and Hibs, and obviously Rangers, but Aberdeen and Hibs, even Hearts, don't sell their tickets for your stadium, but we just buy a ticket and go. And I think parking the match on Saturday, but just the reflection on where Hibs are, where Hibernian are standing at the moment, is their fans are still buying tickets to go to away games in their thousands.
It's great to hear, Matt. It's great to hear. I do have my worry that, I don't know, have we seen this a million times before, where you get that false hope and then the start of next season goes terribly bad again and you punt them by fucking September and you're back in the same old rigmarole. Do you know what I mean? I mean, as I've said, I would.
You do.
That's that. Know what I mean?
So the harsh reality of modern football, and success is everything. Even at Celtic and Rangers, fail, you're out. Yeah.
100%.
Hibs and the American owners, fail, you're out. Aberdeen and the American owners, fail, you're out. Dundee United and the American owners, fail, you're out. And that's probably a reflection on how society works in America as well. You know, you fail, you're out. But Scottish football's in a place. You look at the change of managers just now, the merry-go-round of managers. It's, you know, I really, really hope Lee Johnston pokes us all in the eye and continues his great success.
Does it?
Sadly,
to go back to Son.
Two things actually that spoil any manager's opportunity in Scotland out with playing for managing Celtic or Rangers is the terrible tankings you take off of them can turn all the good work in 90 minutes against you again. And that's a wee bit of what happened when Rangers beat us the other night. Tack him, he's useless. What does he know? It's like, well, actually, have a look at all the games we've played before that. That thumping we gave Livingston the other week. An absolute football lesson. Hibs were brilliant. Hibs played really well against one of the clubs in Scotland that even Celtic and Rangers are always nervous about. That's forgotten because the Huns pumped us. Oh, I've gone and used the H word. I was doing so well.
We'll bleep it out, don't worry. Right, okay. So before we touch about the game, let's talk about the squad. And as per, I'll show my ignorance and go for the bigger names in the squad, and you can kind of educate me as we go. Right, so we'll start in next. David Marshall. I was never overly a massive fan of David Marshall. For what I've seen with you guys, again, he's just an alright keeper. For all his media pals he's got, I just think he's just a bog standard keeper.
I've seen better at Hibs, but he's quite a decent captain. I sit in the 18-yard line and I hear him and Paul Hanlon, between the two of them, jockey our team through the game with Jimmy Jeggles, the third of three on that now. So David Marshall watches the game. He's a good observer, and you hear him. So it's maybe something, you know, you're at Celtic Park's a bit different, big giant stadium, miles away from the game. Easter Road, I'm quite close to it. And so there's a couple of times I felt he does make a brilliant save a game. Okay, but we've had that with Rocky Marciano, was like that. He was magic. And I mean,
I thought he was a good keeper.
He was a good keeper and still is. He plays for PSV Eindhoven. He's got something, you know. But I like him, and it's good. One of the best parts of supporting Hibs is we've generally had excellent goalkeepers and goals for us. If you go all the way back, and I'll include Andy Gorham in that because he wasn't poisonous when he played for Hibs. We've always had good goalies, and when we don't, we're generally worse for it. So I'm fine with David Marshall. He's a good keeper, and none of the people underneath him. You mentioned the laddie that left and went back to Rochdale or wherever. He was never getting a game when David Marshall was in goals.
No.
Schofield, he was never getting a game. So David Marshall, he's fine. Good. He's a good leader.
That is important as well. You touched on, so two guys I was just going to put in the same kind of bracket. I was going to put in Paul Hanlon and Chris Cadden. Yeah. Two still important players for the club.
Correct. So start with Chrissy Cadden. I like him. He's a good attacking player, full of enthusiasm, gets his goals, puts a decent ball in. Can't defend for toffee, unfortunately. But he's a good lad, and Chris has earned a place in the Hibs fans' hearts. We treat him like one of us now, even though I think he's actually a Celtic supporter from Motherwell. But he's come to Hibs and done enough. He was Player of the Year last season for Hibs.
Right.
Important to know. And Paul Hanlon's the great resurrected hero at Hibs because he was finished playing with Porto and Rocky Bashiri, and Paul was the first one dropped. He's carried an injury all season. He's a proper Hibs man. He is a Hibs man, and he has one of the best Hibs songs after him, and that'll stay forever because Paul Hanlon got us that goal against Hearts that got us to the cup final when we beat Rangers 3-2. Yeah, so Paul, so Paul Hanlon has been magnificent since he come back. He's playing with an injury that he'll have to get fixed in the summer. He's not put a foot wrong since Porto went. Interesting little sideline there. He's playing with Will Fish, which we'll maybe touch on in a minute, and the two of them look better together than Porto and Paul Hanlon did.
Right.
Go figure. Yeah. So Paul Hanlon's like a new player at 32.
Right. So talk to me about Will Fish then.
So Will Fish came to Hibs. Didn't he look like setting the header on fire? Looked like Man United were punting him around, seeing what they could do with him, but they've given him a 5-year deal, which even Man United don't really do that. So Lee Johnston, in his wisdom, put him on it right back against Hearts at Tynecastle the day after New Year, and we all knew before that game started it wouldn't work. It wasn't fair on a young laddie, and it wasn't fair, and the laddie just had a disaster, and we got thumped by a very average Hearts team, and you're thinking, what have we got? A Man United player that's shite? I never thought I'd see the day, right? It turns out, play him at right-sided centre-half, jockey him through the game, talk him through the game. The guy's a good player. He's a really good player, and if we get to keep him for next season, we'll all be delighted now.
What age is he?
20 or 21, 20 I think he is.
20, turns 21 in February next year.
Good,
as you say,
good header of the ball, good at his feet, plays a nice pass. All the things that you'd never have seen playing beside the madness of Ryan Porteous, to be honest, because Porto was blood and thunder. And Will Fish is a cultured centre-half that I think actually, he probably won't play for Man United very often, but he'll play at top level, whether it's signing for Hibs full time. So I really like the lad. He's really grown on me. Walking back to the car after Hearts beat us at New Year, if I'd ever seen him again, it would have been too soon. But motive.
Right. So talk to me about your Croatian Marian Cabraja.
So Marian Cabraja came with great hope. First couple of games he got tore in. We were likening him to the famous Eric Shadler that played for Hibs, him and David Murphy are by far the best left backs we ever had at the club, and in modern times. And he started well. His dad died. He's only a young guy too. His dad died and he fell away drastically and dramatically, and he's never found his place again. And Lewis Stevenson remains the preferred left back at Hibs. Personally, for me, if Lewis was 50 and still fit, I'd play him for Hibs anyway, because he is Mr. Hibs to me, you know. So Lewis never lets you down, even when he has a bad game. He'll still nail somebody or something, you know. He'll do something that makes you forgive him. So Marian Cabraja, I don't think he's going to make it, which is very sad. And his dad wasn't much older than myself. You know, when you see it's daft when you say it like that, you know, because they're just young boys that are playing for Hibs. And so I feel a bit sorry for him, because you see there's something there, but I don't think he's going to make it at Hibs. I think he's a lower level player. It's a pity.
Well,
Lewis's position. Many have tried and all have failed.
So we'll come down to next in the midfield, and it kind of comes back to what I was talking about earlier on. And obviously, I'm using Wikipedia for that for all my sins, so I can I could get this totally wrong. But there's only 3 guys who have played over 20 games in the midfield.
Which
And
picks
there's
up on your point of feeling like it was the same players all the time.
well, that's basically what I was
Not
kind
so.
of.
Aye.
So I mean, like you've got Joe Newell, who
Yeah.
you spoke about earlier on. You've got Ewan Henderson, who signed on loan last season and signed full time in the summer, and then you've got Josh Campbell. You've spoken with Josh Campbell. So let's talk about Ewan Henderson. Has he lived up to the player I kind of hoped he was going to be, or is he just still a young guy?
Not at all, and it's not because he's a
Nope.
young guy. Nah, he's a lightweight, a coward, and he doesn't turn
Oh,
up very
jeez.
often. So I describe him regularly as the crisp poke blowing about the pitch, because that's all he does. He hides. I witnessed it early in his Hibs career, to be honest with you, and I always give him a chance. Anybody in a Hibs trip gets a chance with me, and
course, yeah.
Given Ewan's stop with us because of his brother, and because Celtic fans that I know have all rated him, I was always willing to give him a chance. But I heard, I can't remember the second Hibs player, but Lewis Stevenson, who doesn't shout at anybody, Lewis Stevenson gave him a right rollicking at Bonnyrigg Rose. And the reason I remember that is Bonnyrigg Rose, you're right on the pitch, you're standing at a barrier on the grass, it's not like real football. And they were really shouting at him, and Lewis Stevenson called him a lazy bastard and told him to get his finger out. Right, and so you watch closely with that. So Ewan's actually played quite a few games recently. Last couple of games he started. That's because our midfield's decimated. I don't think his heart's in it, which is disappointing. Wow. Yeah. So for me, I'd loan him out or sell him. How's that? And I would sell him to be like Berman or Falkirk. It wouldn't be. He played for Celtic, so he's played for the biggest club he ever will. And he's now at the second biggest club I'll ever play for, in my opinion.
The thing, and I think we've spoken about it before, I just didn't know where he played. I didn't know his form. At no point.
Diamond. That's where they put him. He plays at the top of that midfield diamond generally, and he's no Scott Allen.
Well, like you say, you've got to have something about you, ain't you? You've either got to have unbelievable skill, or you've got to have that dig and passion that's going to bring things. So that's quite disappointing to hear.
Yeah, well, more for me because he keeps getting picked. No, it's like playing with a man.
More for you, of course.
Yeah. My heart thinks when I see him on the team sheet, and I hate doing that. But but listen, our job's also to call out. You don't have to shout "you useless bastard" at them, but you've got to be able to say, "I don't think he's good enough. And he's not given enough." And he's. It's a shame because obviously Liam probably had quite a say in convincing him to leave Celtic to come to Hibs.
Well, that was interesting because I thought he would have followed Liam and went to Italy, but obviously you've
the only way he'll get to Italy now is going to visit the Pope or something, because you'll not be getting
visit his brother.
I'll go and see his brother. I never thought of that. Yeah.
Right. So up front, we kind of talked about. You spoke about Martin Boyle. Well, his injury's been a curse. Kevin Nisbet's up there. It's an off-time discussion. Is Kevin Nisbet good enough to come to Celtic? And on his day, you would definitely say yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Is his day consistent enough to follow that? Yes.
It has been the last few weeks. So before he got a wee niggle, he got a wee niggle on his thigh a couple of 3 weeks back. But he's been back on as a sub twice. Before that, when he come back after Christmas, he was on fire and he looked like Kevin Nisbet that we signed. So because I'm on a Celtic thing, could he play for Celtic? I think yes. Would you get angry at him sometimes? Absolutely. Does he score magnificent goals? He really does. He looks like a goal scorer. What's my hope for Kevin Nisbet? He stays to the summer and we got a couple of £1 million for a championship team in England, and that's where I expect him to end up. If Celtic bought him, he would be your fourth attacker to bring on. That's how I'd see that working out. He would be in your squad. He would score enough good goals to satisfy you all, and then if he got a start because you were playing the League Cup or something, you'd shout at him for. You wouldn't call him lazy. He's not lazy or anything like that. He just sometimes. I think playing the sole striker at Hibs didn't work for him, and it's a bit soul destroying, and so that's will work for him. But with Kukarevich beside him, and with Lee Johnston, when Lee Johnston decides he wants to play, then Kevin Nisbet is one of the best. Right, certainly, I can't think of a better Scottish striker, and I include the one with the massive forehead that plays for Hearts. Kevin Nisbet's a far better player than that one. Frank Shanklinstein, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, so Kevin Nisbet's
right.
spicy player of him.
So there's, I'm looking at the strikers, right, and obviously Wikipedia's right because Doidge is away
Kelly,
and
do nothing.
Melson's away. So Harry McCurdy and talk to me about Yuan, Ellie Yuan.
I'll start with Ellie Yuan because I didn't take him, right, and simply because I wasn't seeing enough coming out of him, but he's got better and better every week, and Hibs have an option to sign in the summer that if you'd asked me at Christmas should we sign, I'd have drove him back to France or Switzerland. He plays in Switzerland, he's French, because I didn't rate him. However, he's proven me wrong. He's a good player, scores good goals. He's just a greedy bastard. A greedy bastard. You're shouting, fucking pass it, puppy. And he does it. And then the next minute he beats 3 men and scores a corker, and you're like, oh, fair enough, he didn't pass it, but that's a peach. So good player. Good player. And if Hibs have got a good deal, rumour is it was 700,000, but in fact it turns out it's maybe nearer 200,000. That would be worth investing in because you could see him doing well for Hibs. He seems to love it.
He's 23-year-old,
Aye, this is his time. The rumour from St Gallen, one of the boys that goes on the website with us, he lives in France and speaks obviously fluent French. He went on the St Gallen website to find out what the problem was, and it was in fact the fans hated him and the players hated him. The boys got no chance. So, you know what I mean? So on that basis, I think he would be a good signing for Hibs, and on his day, you stand up and go. He'll probably do something at Celtic Park like that, and you'll be, oh fucking hell, he's good. And then you'll forget about him for 45 minutes. So Ellie Yuan, interesting. So Harry McCurdy, let's talk about Harry. So when Harry doesn't play for Hibs, he's doing the skateboard part with his pals. Honestly, he dresses like a tramp. He comes on like you know that shit comedian for Yorkshire. What's his name? Keith Lemon. You know he always has a
right, okay, aye.
Harry has one on below his knee that he's had on the whole time he's played for Hibs.
And right, I remember him coming on. I've just looked at the picture of him. I remember him coming on.
Yeah, he's had Mohicans, he's had blonde hair, punked up and all that. I seen him coming in East Road when he was injured at one point in a pair of jogging bottoms. I think he borrowed off his ma. He's just one of the eclectic, punky-looking folk. You know the ones we all know them in life. So Harry is classically one of them. I've got a wee soft spot for him because there's a football player in there. You can see it, but he'll probably piss about with Hibs for a couple of years, go somewhere else, fanny around. One of the ones, that probably if he'd been a focused professional like Lewis Stevenson or Paul Hanlon, he would go on to play 500 games for someone and be a good respected player. Harry will know, he'll not be bothered.
Just a job.
He's just a daft. It's all you probably got on against Celtic when we're doing by a few goals because that's how he seems to get his games. And you watch him and you'll see something. He's got some nice touches. He's all heart, but the problem in Scottish football is we put ourselves down and we think that we are like English second and third division, and we're Championship or lower league Premiership. Yeah, that's where we sit. And you can see guys like Harry McCurdy come from the lower leagues. They're not good enough for a team like Hibs. They're not good enough for a team like Ross County. And that's why you mentioned Noah Kenny. He's doing average up there, and he came from Leeds United. So Harry McCurdy, an interesting animal. The one I would like to mention that you didn't mention here is Kukarevich, Mikola Kukarevich. He's a player. He'll go on and play for somebody, and in a few years' time, we'll be watching a game in, I don't know, Standard Liège will be playing Boa Vista or something, and he'll be playing in it, and you say, oh, that's that big boy who played for Hibs. He's good. He's got something. He's had a wee bit of an injury. And what's really good is obviously Hibs have the massive link with the Ukraine with the charity that I was involved in, and my mate still runs, and we've made millions for the kids on that. To have a Ukrainian playing for Hibs at this time with all the kids that are Ukrainian that come to Hibs now and are Hibs supporters, and we've adopted them and brought them to our country, it's quite a nice thing because he's a good player. They have a big flag for him, and I like that. That's what football is about. That's as important as shouting abuse over a fence at each other. You know, so Kukarevich is a good player, and if we get him for another year on loan, I would be absolutely delighted.
He's only 21, so he turns 22 this year, aye?
Yeah.
There you go.
Big, strong laddie, wins the ball, looks like a football, because he's tall. Sometimes he look a bit gangly. He doesn't. He looks like a football player. He's just tall. As I said, there's a relationship. It's nice when he scores, he runs over to the group of 40, 50.
Very good.
And they put flags. And I think, you know, for me, that's parking the politics, isn't that how football should be, you know?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's go on to Saturday. You touched about it. You touched on it earlier on, right?
I thought that was enough.
and I was using transfer market, right? And the formations this season.
The formations. How many Masons play for Hibs? Or the formations?
4-2-3-1 to a 3-5-2 to a 4-1-4-1, back to a 3-5-2 to a 3-4-2-1 to a 4-4-1-1, a 4-3-3, back to a 5-3-2 in the last two games. Yeah. Now, is that basically just the fluidity of the team, or has he been changing things up that much?
So it started by changing things that much because of inability to select a full team that cover. You know, there was weeks it's like, who do we play up front? You know, it's weeks where we had basically three midfielders. So there's been a bit. That's why one of our defenders we signed plays in midfield. It's a bit of that.
Right.
You can see it going on. He can't help himself, but he does. He is a tactician. He is, and you know that's why. If we just set the same team up every week to play Livingston or Celtic or Kelly, it would be right. You have to set your team up for the team you're playing against. So I think he doesn't get the credit for that somewhat. However, there was a moment where I think, a few weeks in and around the two, not particularly a defeat to Celtic because we expected that, but the two Hearts defeats where the guy was shiting himself for his job. And so he was trying everything. You'll probably find the peak of those changes every week was him just trying to find the right mix. However, I think he does try to play fluid attacking football, and he changes the shape to accommodate that a wee bit, right? And so I never thought I'd see the day that I'd really defend him, but I think that's what he's trying to do. And Hibs fans always moan, you know, we are the other team in Scotland that want that type of football, along with yourselves, that we expect to be entertained. That, you know, I'd rather see Hibs lose 5-4 than draw 0-0 type approach. I think he recognises that, and that's part of the reason. But there's a big part of the reason was around the availability of players and him shiting himself for his own position, where he was trying to just get it right. Dare I say it, he's got it right if we exclude playing you guys and we exclude playing Rangers. I think he understands. He's just got to master Hearts. That's his last expectation from me. Is that master? You know, if we came to Celtic Park and took a comfortable doing but didn't get humiliated, we walk away and accept that. Do we celebrate the draws and go euphoria if we ever beat you for any reason? When we draw at Rangers or even lose at Rangers, we're defined anyway, and you know, but all the other teams we should be going out to beat.
Definitely.
I don't think we should go to Celtic Park to try and beat you. I think we should go to Celtic Park and do what all the other shitey teams do that get beat 1-0. I know that doesn't sound great for entertainment, but
there's a bit of realism there, isn't there?
You have to humiliation. I mean, 6-0 to you for trying to play football is no.
I hear Celtic fans criticise teams for that, and it's almost kind of harking back to, do you remember the Arsene Wenger days where he would moan at Stoke because they get a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw because he wanted them to open up so his team could play, and you're sitting going,
otherwise only 1-0, and so
there's a bit of fucking realism in the world here.
I think, you know, to match up the two teams on Saturday, like for like, there isn't a Hibs player get near your squad. Right, that's where we are. There isn't a Hibs player get near you. Kevin Nisbet might go on the bench. So why would we go and try and match you on the pitch? So, and I'm not an advocate of playing for a draw. I hate it. I want Hibs to win every week. Folk laugh at me. I'm 57-year-old. I still want Hibs to win the league at the start of every season. That's my expectation. And the day I stop, that's the day I stop going. Ken, what's worse, I want Everton to win their league as well.
I think Hibs have got more chance in it.
Well, there's more chance of Hibs winning it. We just right.
So the teams have met twice this season. I kind of had a look at them. The first one is only kind of relevant because it was played at Parkhead between the two teams. Even the personnel's changed a hell of a lot for both teams. The 4-0 game at your place, a wee bit more relevant. But I wonder if you could tell me, do you expect him to have learned, and go with the mindset that you've just suggested, or is it he sticks on his lovely big jacket and he goes to the town again?
Yeah, I'll have to answer that one. I'd like to think he's learned his lessons, and I'd like to think he respects the Hibs support enough to know that we didn't want to go and get pumped, right? I think if he does that, he'll gain respect from the Hibs fans. If he goes with 3 up front, 3 in the midfield, 4 at the back, and Celtic are toying with us like a rag doll after 10 minutes, yeah, the Hibs fans will leave. They boo. They call him a Hearts bastard. They start shouting things at your fans, and things start getting thrown. All the badness comes out. Mm-hmm. I would much prefer it's at half time and you guys are disgruntled and booing, going down, saying, well, it's 0-0. I never predict Hibs results, never done it in my life because they're way too unpredictable. But I would be delighted to come out of Celtic Park with a draw. I'd be ecstatic with a draw. I would be accepting of a defeat that's reasonable because Hibs put up a fight. Yeah, I'm not 100% comfortable with it because I want my team to win. If we get scudded because Lee has said, fuck it, let's just get Nizzy, Cookery, Rich and Johan up front and we'll score more than them, I'd be really annoyed at him. Right. So a hard one, isn't it? Because I'll repeat it 100 times. I know Celtic fans like to lay claim to the beautiful game and how it's played, but there are other teams in Scotland that fans prefer to go and watch your team win and try and play football and entertain. And I want Hibs to do that, but I don't want to do it at the cost of humiliation to the club. And the 6-0 doing at Parkhead, I did not like, and I left, and I never do that. But I left because I don't like that, and that's not the Hibs team I support. And I do support them. I am a supporter, not a fan. I go and so a hard one, Scott, because I know if he was doing it, he would do it because he tries to espouse that thing that we're all dreaming of. We want to run out against Hearts and beat them 5-0, and I've passed them off the pitch like we did when we beat them 6-2 all those years ago, But doesn't it? The reality of football is just not like that anymore. And Celtic, if you put your second 11 out, you'd probably beat us 2 or 3-0. Unfortunately, which now I'm not particularly sucking up. I just
take my Celtic hat off for a while. You kind of go. That's the truth, isn't it? I mean, the amount of fucking money we've got in comparison to everybody else, that really should be the case anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, you should be. So I'm going to say one thing that I hope all your listeners, all 2 of your listeners, are sitting down. Put people that know me, and quite a few of your Celtic pals know me quite well, and you honestly, guys, there's very little difference between my sentiments around football and history between that and most Celtic fans. And I despise Rangers. I don't hide it. I despise them. They don't like me as an individual, and those that know me, and I'm fine with that. I'm very comfortable with that. In fact, I'm happy about that. However, and then last week when we played them, that's the worst I have ever seen them in my 50 years of going to football. And some of the songs, Scott, you might not even remember them that they were singing at us. That's how old their songbook went to. So don't think for a minute I have any love with them or any thoughts about them. My thoughts are probably illegal. What I will say is, see their team on the pitch? Watch out, they're actually quite good. I hate saying that, hurts, that kills me to say that. And I wrote my match report and told everybody to sit down because you're not going to believe what I'm about to say. Their new manager probably isn't a right fit for them because he's far too intelligent and knows the game and probably is quite a sensible gentleman. And they fuck nuggets aren't. But what I would say is he's got his team playing very well, and don't go into any semi-final casually expecting to beat them, because I think even given just a few weeks since you played them and found it a wee bit more difficult, they're even better than that now. I was flabbergasted because I expected to go and play Rangers last week and maybe just finish their title challenge for them. That's what I thought Hibs might do, because we've been playing really well. They played us off the pitch. The whole game, it was humiliating. So just watch out for that one, my Celtic friends. Don't be too casual about it. Don't think that the filth and the terracing is anything like the team on the pitch. They seem to be an organised professional football team that will give most people everybody in Scotland a hammer and give you guys a game. Which was a real eye-opener for me, because I thought they were a mile off you. They're not.
Right,
so spoiling your evening, but it's only if you
no, not at all. I'm not going to push you for a score, because
I won't give you one.
I don't do them either, so we're fine with that. I'm just going to finish up. You've answered different. You've gave us a good update on Hibs. It's always great to speak to you, Marky. So once again, thank you very much for taking your time out tonight to speak to me. And I look forward to the next one, mate.
I will. Hopefully I'll give you a wee message later on Saturday evening, and it's a message. And just don't forget, Scotland are playing next week as well. I will be attending that. I managed to get some leatherette seats, which is quite good.
Lovely.
Hopefully Porto starts, and Porto and John McGinn are my people to cheer for.
Good man. Well, Mark, thank you very much, mate, and I'll speak to you soon.
See you later. Thanks, guys. Bye.